Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to go through my first week as a brand new mom. I'm not going to do so much my labor story because I'm not sure that's something that you want to see or read. So if it is something that you want to hear about or read about, please leave a comment in the section below and I'll gladly write it all up. I did have a cesarean section and I haven't read that many labor stories about women having cesareans. So if you want to read that, then let me know and I'll definitely do a post on it. But today, as I said, my first week of being a brand new mom, and it's been quite a ride already. I realized on my first night in hospital with Aria that I'd actually never babysat before. Like, I've never babysat a child and I've never looked after a child. So having my child with me was just the first of everything. So I'm going to go through a few key things that I think everybody wonders about, and then the most important thing for me is emotionally how I coped. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is sleeping, her sleeping in particular. This was something that I was very anxious about. Was she going to sleep through? Was she going to be a nightmare? Was she going to be a demon child? Was she going to be an angel? And I have to say, barring the first night in hospital, which was an absolute nightmare for me because I didn't know what I was doing, she's actually been really good. Dan and I, and we say this to everyone, we're very lucky that so far, she's been an angel child. She wakes up on her own sort of every 2.5 to 3 hours at night. We sort of put her down at I do a last feed at 6, and then she tends to wake up at about 9, and Dan bottle feeds her milk that I've expressed, and then she tends to sort of wake up 12:12, 3:03, and then 6:30, which is a lot of waking up to do, but it's a lot better than what I thought it would be. She also goes back to sleep very quickly as well, which is really, really, really nice. The first night we were home, obviously in hospital she stayed in the room with me, but the first night we were home we put her straight into her own cot, into her own room, and it was really difficult. I think the only thing that saved I was so scared she was going to die because you read so much about sudden infant death syndrome, was the Angel Care monitor. So mine is actually on at the moment because she's having a little nap. And we've just got the sound monitor, even though her room is literally next door to ours. You do also get the motion sensor mat, but we didn't get it. And this stays next to my bed, and if I hear her cry, then I get up, and this really helped because I've turned the sensitivity and the volume all the way up so I can hear if she's niggling or not. So in terms of sleeping, I definitely mentally prepared myself while I was pregnant in the last few weeks that it was just going to be very difficult, and it's been, I don't want to say it's been easier than what I thought, but it hasn't been as bad as what I thought it would be. The second thing I want to chat about is feeding. So I think I mentioned in my last video that I was definitely going to breastfeed Aria if I could, and it turns out that I have enough milk for a small African country. So again, I'm very, very lucky. The first day she was born in the morning, you don't get milk straight away. You get what they call colostrum. It's like a very thick yellow substance. It's very weird to me that all these things are coming out of my body, but basically it's got everything that they need in it for the first 3 days usually. But Aria just didn't suck. She would latch, but she wouldn't suck. So she did get one top-up formula bottle in hospital, but after that she sucked and she feeds like a dream. She latches properly. She feeds for 15 to 20, sometimes even 30 minutes at a time. And then she's in a milk coma and she just sleeps. So that's been really easy. What hasn't been easy when it comes to breastfeeding is and I'm just gonna completely overshare here, is my nipples took such a beating. I knew it was gonna happen, but I didn't realize how sore it was gonna be. My nipples have been more sore than recovering from a cesarean, in all honesty. The first 3 days I was like, oh no, this is fine, my nipples are gonna be fine, I'm not gonna get cracked sore nipples. But the 4th day I wanted to shoot through the roof whenever she latched, and they cracked. They didn't bleed, but they definitely scabbed in the end. And I swear the only 2 things that helped me through were in the day I put on the O'Leaf tummy wax on them, after every single feed and after every single time I pumped, I put this on. And then at night I put on the Medela Pure Land 100, and the combination of these two, I swear, saved my boobs, because now she is 13 days, but I would say by day 8 my nipples are back to normal, and it's like, it's not sore when she feeds. I can feel like the suction, but it's not like I wanted to cry every time she fed. So if you're looking to breastfeed, or if you are breastfeeding and you're really suffering, these two will save your life. The other thing that I mentioned in my previous video was that I was like petrified of the breast pump. So I took it to hospital and I didn't use it. When I came home, and I left hospital a day early just because I was fine and I was coping and whatnot, I came home and I hadn't pumped, but I had been feeding her every 3 hours, but my boobs were huge. They were huge. They were rock hard, and they were boiling hot, and they were sore. And I know about mastitis and all those horrible things. So I got into the shower, and they say you get into the shower, let the hot water run over them, and almost like massage the milk out, which I did do, but it only helps so much. So I was like, okay, you know what, I need to bite the bullet now. I just need to get this damn breast pump out. Turns out I'd lost the cable for the electric breast pump. So luckily we had some batteries, but the battery power just wasn't enough to give enough suction on the pump. So that didn't work out so well, and it was already late at night, so I just had to suffer. And I did. I suffered through the night, and it was fine. And the next morning, Dan just said to me, we need to get something. Now, breast pumps are quite expensive, the electric ones, especially if you're doing a double pump or whatnot. And for me, because I am breastfeeding with her on me, on my breast, I just didn't feel like I needed to spend a lot of money on a breast pump. So I actually saw that Clicks has their own brand of breast pump. It looks like this. The bottle just isn't attached. So it looks like this. There's a bottle that attaches at the bottom. Mine's just in the fridge because I have milk in it at the moment. And this goes onto your breast, and then you pump like that. Sorry, I just washed this, so it's dripping a bit of water. So we went and we bought that. It was 184 Rand. I think it was on special. Usually it's probably about 250. It has saved my life. I pump after every single feed. If she's fed on the left, I pump so that breast is empty after she's fed. And I usually get, I would say, about 75 mils out at the end of the day, and then that's enough for Dan to do a feed for her at 9 o'clock at night, because it's really important to me that they also get to bond. So that breast pump, if you're looking for one just to sort of, not a heavy duty one, so to speak, I really suggest you get that one. It is a hand operated one or whatnot, so it is a little bit more work, but I mean, I use it for maybe 10 minutes at a time after each feed, and it works like a bomb. It's like my best friend now. Then also, with all these goodies, the breast pump and the bottles and stuff, you need to sterilize. And I have got a big Tommee Tippee sterilizer for the bottles, but it's packed somewhere in all our boxes because we are moving. So I found this, I received this Medela micro steam bag. And at first I was like, okay, this is a bit weird, but these things are incredible, and I'm going to buy more to put into my nappy bag because they're so flat. It's like a plastic bag. Basically, it's got this seal here at the top. You open it up, you pop all your items in here after you have washed them in sunlight liquid, and then you rinse them so there's no soap in it. You pop everything in here, 4 tablespoons of water, you put it in the microwave for 1.5 minutes, and then you take it out. There's a little spout over here, you pour the water out, and it's sterilized. You can use this bag 20 times. I think the bags are about 80 Rand, I stand to be corrected, but I just think they are so clever, especially for your nappy bag, because you don't want to lug around a huge sterilizer, especially if you're using bottles to feed. So that's sleeping and feeding her. In terms of a routine, Dan and I were quite adamant that we would put it into a routine as soon as we could. A flexible routine because she is still so little, and I feel like we've done pretty well. She wakes up for a feed at 6:30. I tend to bring her into our room. She feeds and she goes back to sleep till about 8:30, 9, and that's when her day begins. I open the curtains, I change her, I talk to her, we play. As much as you can play with a newborn, and then at nighttime we're quite strict. Bath time is at 5:30. Dan baths her every night, he's been incredible. I have to say, like, I've only gotten through these past 2 weeks now because he has been the most incredible, like, support. It completely blew my mind. He actually went back to work today, so I'm feeling a little bit lost without him, but he has been amazing. And so he baths every night at 5:30. I feed her at 6. She's down by 6:30 sleeping, and then again she wakes up for her feed that Dan gives her at 9. So we try to be quite strict in terms of her routine, but also we go out for dinner. We've gone out for dinner twice now, and she comes with us, and we just try to fit her routine into our lives. So hopefully that continues to go well. Something that, besides my husband, I think I would have just lost my mind without is this Baby Sense book. This book is, like, if you don't have it and you're having your first child, you need to buy this for yourself. There's also I think Feeding Sense and Sleeping Sense. I only have Baby Sense. My mom bought it for me when I was pregnant, and I didn't read it at all. I think I reached chapter 2 before I had her, but it's got a very comprehensive index. Dan and I have, like, looked through this book at 2 o'clock in the morning. We didn't know what was wrong with our kid because she was just screaming and crying. Turns out she had her days and nights mixed up, and this book, I swear, not only has it saved our sanity, but I'm pretty sure it saved our marriage, because it's so well written. It's got so much information in it as well. You have to have it. It's one of those things that you have to have, and I will always endorse Baby Sense because it just has worked so well for us for the past 2 weeks. Not everything in the book is going to work, but it has so many tips and so many solutions for what could be the problem that I'm pretty sure you would always find a solution to whatever's happening with your kid. And what I also like about it is that it breaks down the weeks. So there's a section from newborn to 2 weeks, and it tells you how often they should be feeding, how they should be sleeping, how you can stimulate them, how to make bath time easier. It breaks everything down really nicely, because especially if you're someone like me who has never had a kid before and has never babysat before, you actually don't know what you're doing and you're winging your way through this. So it's nice to be given, like, some guidelines, and then tailor make your routine around those guidelines. So I would suggest you get this book. It's brilliant. So the last thing I wanted to speak about was emotionally how I've coped, and this to me has been like the biggest shock, because I prepared myself mentally for the sleep deprivation, for how it would change our marriage, for feeding. I like, for a good few weeks I just mentally prepared myself. I read a lot about how it worked, and I felt really ready, and I was ready, and I feel like I've coped really well with that. But what I didn't prepare myself for was the emotional change. And I think it's because I'm not a particularly overly emotional person. I don't really cry. I mean, I didn't cry my wedding day. I didn't cry when we saw her heartbeat. I'm just not a very emotive person in general. But I didn't take into account how drastically my hormones would change, when we had her, just because, your hormones do just go mental after taking that baby out. It triggers a whole bunch of changes, and I just didn't take that into account. So everyone always says to you, and this is just my personal experience, I'm not saying this is for everybody, but I hadn't really read much about this until I experienced it for myself. Everyone says to you, when you hear your baby cry for the first time, when they pull her out of you, you're just overcome with emotion, and you're going to cry, and you're going to fall in love with your child immediately. That was not the case for me at all. They pulled her out. I don't even remember hearing her cry because I was so tired from the night before. That's another whole story that I'll probably go into at some stage. I heard her cry, but I don't think I completely registered her cry. And I saw them take her to the little table to check her out and make sure she was fine. When we were back in the ward, and I was happy that she was here. I was relieved that she was here. I definitely felt that I cared for her, but I didn't feel that instant spark of, I love this child so much and I will kill for her. When we were back in the room, it was very overwhelming. The first day is very, very overwhelming as a new parent. You didn't have a child, and now you have a child. And we had quite a few visitors that day as well, which maybe in hindsight was not the best idea, but I feel like the day would have been overwhelming anyway. when the second day rolled around, and I had a horrendous first night with her, the second day rolled around, I remember my parents came to visit and they saw her and they're like, oh, she's so beautiful and this and the next thing, and people were SMSing me and saying like, you must be so in love with her, and I was like, yeah. And then I remember my parents visited and they, saw her and whatnot, and then they left, and I remember as they walked out the door, I was holding this child and I just started crying and crying and crying. And Dan was like, what is going on? And I said to him, why don't I love my child? Like, everybody loves this child, everybody loves Arya, but I don't feel like I love her. Like, I'm her mother. Why don't I love her? I don't feel this bond everybody keeps talking about. I feel like such a failure, especially because we had the miscarriage and we wanted this child so desperately, and now here I am holding this perfectly healthy, beautiful baby girl, and I don't feel like I love her. I don't feel like I'm her mother. And so that was very, very difficult for me. And I cried and I cried and I cried. And he said, we aren't those kind of people. He said, he also doesn't feel this immediate bond to her. He knows that she's his daughter and he cares for her deeply. And I cared for her and still obviously do care for her so deeply. But we were strangers, like really and truly, we were strangers. And so it's taken a long time for me to, these past 13 days, to sort of try form a bond with my child. And I can honestly say that it got better when I got home. I definitely felt better because she was in our environment. We were in our home. We weren't in the hospital anymore. Not that the hospital was bad, but we were just back in our home and she was fitting in with our lives. And I care for my child very deeply, and I can definitely say now that I'm starting to be more and more in love with her, and the bond is growing stronger and stronger and stronger. But it was a huge shock to me, a huge emotional shock to me, to not be completely in love with my child from the word go. And it was so funny because I think I was just scrolling through my social media one day and I saw an article by Maz, who has the blog Caffeine and Fairy Dust, and she spoke about how when her daughter was born, she also didn't have that bond. And I actually, I think I actually had seen the article before, and then I emailed her and I asked her to please send me the link because I couldn't find it on her blog. And she sent it to me and I read it, and it just, honestly, I had such a teary moment and I had a little cry because that's exactly how I felt. And I'll link that blog post below because I think it's so important for women to realize that not everybody is going to react the same way to the birth of their child. I'm very aware of postnatal depression. I'm very aware that it might rear its ugly head, and I have no shame in going on an antidepressant if I need to. I don't think it's going to reach that point because I already feel much better, like I'm caring for my child and I do love her now, and I can feel that love is going to grow stronger. But I think it's also important to remember that it's a very real disease. I don't know if disease is the right word, but it's a very real condition. And so many women go through it, and so many women don't recognize the symptoms. So I just really wanted to chat to you about my experience when she was born, that I didn't feel that I loved her immediately, that I cried every single day, and it was worse at night. I cried, I think even last night I had a little bit of a cry. I mean, it was like for the first few days, like Dan would do the dishes and I was so grateful that he did the dishes that I would cry, and I'm not that kind of person, and so it was quite a big shock to me. But I want to encourage you that if you are going through something similar like this, it does get better, and if it isn't getting better, just go to your GP and go on something. There is no shame in it at all. At the end of the day, you do care for your child, and you can't care for her to the best of your abilities if you are suffering from postnatal depression. There's nothing wrong with popping a few rescue remedy. I do it once a day. It helps me cope, and there's nothing wrong with that. So on that very deep and meaningful note, that is my video on my first week of motherhood. I've kept it really short and simple. If there are any questions, or if you want to know my experience of something specific, please email me or tweet me or leave a comment in the section below. I'm very much an open book and I will answer anything that you ask. I'm still definitely trying to find my way through this whole thing. I've heard that there's going to be a growth spurt at 4 weeks, and I'm just going to want to off myself because she's not going to want to sleep. So we'll see what happens there. And again, if you want to hear my labor story or read it, please let me know, and I'll definitely write it up or film it. I'm not sure which way I'd go yet. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. It was a little bit all over the place, but I feel like that's the best way for me to do these videos, just to speak from my heart and tell you exactly how it's been. So don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and then I will see you guys next time. Bye!